FM Talk.
The National Museum of American History should tell the American national story. It should present the facts of history, what actually happened, as accurately as possible and with minimal present-day bias. Americans' history belongs neither to liberals nor conservatives. It belongs, as was noted, to the American people. Visitors understand the basic chronological narrative and see how the nation got to where it is today. Nothing integral to that history should be erased or whitewashed. But social transformation should not be the objective. The National Museum of American History should tell the story of a nation and a people driven to overcome injustice and live up to its heritage.
Well, very well said. Dr. Matthew Spalding speaking there. He's the vice president of Washington Operations and the dean of the Van Andel Graduate School of Government at Hillsdale College. And this is a testimony at a hearing regarding what kind of content, what kind of history is the public sharing with the public, specifically at these Smithsonian museums. And we are very fortunate to have the doctor on the show with us today. We welcome Dr. Matthew Spalding here to the Annie Frey Show. Doctor, thank you for your time today. It's a pleasure to have you on here with us.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
So I think that you hit the nail on the head with that clip that we just played, because, you know, history is history. And of course, there are people who have to tell the story. But if you change the story, then it's no longer history, right?
Well, even worse than that, it's no longer the story anymore. I mean, I used to think this was a debate about history. And, you know, there are nuances, there are differences of opinion. We emphasize this, emphasize that. But I'm just appalled. You go to the History Museum now, and it's not, there's no chronology, there's no story, and it's really not an American history at all. History's become this tool, if you will, and it's all about empowering the oppressed, and how things are always oriented towards changing the old narratives, which were all oppressive, and they were all about power struggles, in favor of these new activities about social action and social change. It's not a history museum anymore, and it's definitely not an American history museum anymore. And given that Congress is funding it, you know, I don't know, 2/3 of its budget, and it's about $1 billion a year. I'm appalled that the American people, the taxpayers, through Congress legislated and created the Smithsonian, are allowing this to happen. It's been completely taken over by a new presentation, a new thing. Maybe that could be debated in a faculty lounge at some Ivy League university, but this is the National Museum on our mall, and it doesn't tell our own story. So when students go there, when families go there, instead of learning about the American Revolution and George Washington and the Continental Congress, they're going to learn about all sorts of various edgy things about sex and oddities, and the fact that ukuleles are about imperialism and Mickey Mouse is about racism. It's just an amazingly very problematic thing. I'm just appalled by the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that it's something that we need the experts like yourself to bring the spotlight and shine it right on what is actually happening here. It seems like so many other things, when a political bent is put on something like this, it always goes in the same direction. I mean, are there people out there right now, Doctor, who are accusing the right of trying to sway our history in the way it's expressed, you know, in our public spaces, our publicly funded spaces, to be too conservative or Republican or opposite of whatever it is that you call this? Or is it always going the same way?
Of course. No, that's exactly what's happening. So the assumption in the press and at the hearing and in the kind of mainstream media, if you will, is that the Smithsonian is a highly trusted museum of experts and great curators, and the conservatives are now trying to change and rewrite history to make it into the 1950s or something worse than that. If only it were the case. It's the exact opposite, which is, you know, we've been hearing these stories for some time now about these crazy ideas in the universities and things that, well, they're not going to come, you know, here. And now it's turning out, we pull back the curtain, and it dominates. That whole philosophy is postmodern history and the craziness of an overemphasis on all these edgy issues. It dominates the National Museum of American History. We're not trying to take that over. I'd be very happy if an old liberal type, one of my old history professors, rewrote the narrative in the museum. I'd be perfectly comfortable with that. There was old liberal consensus forever about what happened in the American Revolution. This is not about liberalism and conservatism. This is about mainstream history being erased, being removed, and replaced by a very postmodern agenda, which looks at history as a power struggle having to do with oppressed people and the oppressors and that kind of thing.
We're speaking with Dr. Matthew Spalding. He's the Vice President of Washington Operations and Dean of the Van Andel Graduate School of Government at Hillsdale College. You know, I'm thinking to myself, we're listening to your assessment of that. I've been to the Smithsonian in a couple times in the last few years and was wowed by, first of all, the magnitude of what you can take in at all these different museums. My husband is a history teacher in middle school. And so we spent a ton of time. I followed him around in the American Wars area and just kind of took that in. It's so important to be able to consume these stories, because if you don't tell them, then they are easily swayed into other areas that aren't accurate. They're redesigning of what actually happened. Is there a way to correct this? Is there a solution to what's happening right now?
Well, here's the challenge. The Smithsonian is a massive institution, and I love the Smithsonian. It has all these great iconic artifacts. I mean, you mentioned the war exhibit, but Lincoln's top hat, the Washington's uniform, the flag that inspired the national anthem. It's America's attic, and I love that. But the attic has been completely taken over by this crazy argument. So the Smithsonian is this quasi-independent agency. It gets funded by Congress. It's partly under the executive, but there's a board of regents that oversees it. The regents is headed up by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. It also includes a vice president and some senators and congressmen and public figures. That board of regents needs to look at this seriously. The notion, I would think that the Chief Justice and the Vice President and anybody in the Senate or Congress would be appalled by this and just not telling the American story, especially on the 250th anniversary of the Declaration, which is why there's a tension right now. What are you doing for the 250th? Well, it turns out not much new. It's the same old stuff. Why? Yeah. Because they don't want to emphasize that story. Because that story doesn't tell the story they want to tell. Yeah. This is a real problem.
Yeah. I'm wondering, I wish I had the sound for this. You probably saw this and remember this clip, but J.D. Vance was on The View, I don't know, weeks ago. And one of the questions that Whoopi Goldberg, I believe, posed to the vice president at the time, she asked questions about the erasure of Black people and Black history. I don't have the direct quote, but they were talking about this particular administration's efforts. They were accusing this administration of trying to remove Black history from the Smithsonian or from the museums that are in existence there in Washington, D.C. So I'm thinking there is this accusation that is coming from the left suggesting that the people who are at the helm right now, duly elected by the American people, are trying to change history. They seem to have a big problem with that. When in fact, what I hear from you is that there is history being changed. It is on full display, funded by the taxpayer dollar, but it's completely to the other side. Do the people in the View have any point here?
No, you're absolutely right. As you set it up, right, is history controlled by the Organization of American Historians, which is increasingly progressive and postmodern, which is what's driving a lot of this? Or does American history actually belong to the American people? I mean, the National Smithsonians, the National Museums and the National Mall are created by Congress and funded by Congress, which means the American people. Have we no say in what history is taught? We would prefer that the people want their history to be taught to their children because it forms citizens. It forms us as self-governing people. It's not controlled by the academic left historians who no longer believe in the American story. That's what's going on here. And this is a very important debate, discussion, dialogue, argument that has to be figured out. There's, at the center of all these debates about America and what America means and whatnot, here at the Smithsonian, the Museum of American History, that's now that divide, and in this case, a divide moving very rapidly towards a postmodern breakdown of American history, is clearly on display. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? It's out in the open now. Board of Regents, Congress, the executive, they got to figure out how to proceed.
Well, because of your testimony, the eyes and the ears of the American people are now on it as well. And we're grateful for you sharing some of your time here on our show to shine an even more local spotlight on it. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
Great.
And keep doing what you're doing.